The knife hits the cutting board like a heartbeat. Steady, precise. Amara doesn't hear the blade against wood, hasn't heard anything in 11 years, but she feels every vibration travel up through her fingers, through her wrist, into the quiet room inside her skull where sound used to live. Tonight, the kitchen of the Cho compound smells like duck fat and truffle shavings flown in on ice from France. Amara stands at the edge of it all, invisible, the way the syndicate likes their help to be. She's not the chef tonight. She's the shadow behind the chef, the one who preps, who plates, who disappears before anyone important looks her way. Her brother Taemin is 3 floors below in a hospital bed she can't visit because visiting hours don't pay medical bills. And this job, this strange, dangerous, gilded cage of a job, does. 12,000 a month to stand silent in a kitchen where men who kill for a living come to eat $5,000 dinners and pretend they're civilized. She hasn't seen Cho Eun-woo eat a full meal in 3 weeks. Nobody talks about it out loud, not where cameras might catch lips moving. But the staff all know. The blue-haired syndicate boss picks at his food like it might bite back. Sometimes he doesn't even sit at the table. He drinks something clear and medical-looking from a pouch in his private room, and the kitchen staff whisper that someone tried to poison him twice this year, that his own body doesn't trust anything anymore, that even salt tastes like a threat now. A man who runs half the shipping lanes on the peninsula, brought down to sipping fluid through a tube because nobody can prove which one of his enemies got close enough to slip something into his rice. Tonight is supposed to fix that, or at least paper over it in front of people with money. So Young has been planning this dinner for 6 weeks. Eun-woo's wife, young, polished, sharp enough to cut herself on her own reflection, flew in a Michelin chef from Seoul just for the occasion, spent $5,000 on truffle and foie gras and wine older than some of the guests, all to convince 3 investors from Busan that the Cho family is thriving, unshaken, hungry for more territory. She's wearing white silk. She's smiling the kind of smile that takes practice. Amara watches from her corner as the final plate goes out, a slab of wagyu draped in truffle sauce, garnished within an inch of its life. So Young personally carries it to the head of the table like she's presenting a crown. Eun-woo picks up his fork. The room goes quiet in that particular way. Rooms go quiet when everyone's pretending not to watch the most powerful man in it. He takes one bite. For a second, nothing happens. Then his face changes. Not disgust exactly. Something rawer than that. Something closer to pain, and he spits the food straight back onto the plate, shoves it away so hard the wine glasses rattle, and slams his palm flat against the table. The sound doesn't reach Amara. The vibration does. She feels it travel through the floor into the soles of her feet. So Young's face drains white, then floods red. 6 weeks of planning, $5,000, 3 investors watching, and her husband just spat out the centerpiece like it was poison. She spins toward the kitchen doorway, looking for someone to blame, and her eyes land on Amara, the deaf black chef, the quiet one, the easiest target in the room because she won't even hear the accusation coming. You, So Young snaps, crossing the room in 4 furious strides. What did you touch? What did you put in this? Amara doesn't hear the words, but she reads everything else. The flush climbing So Young's throat, the finger jabbing toward her chest, the investor's eyes swinging toward her like spotlights. She shakes her head, hands lifting, palms out. She hasn't touched that dish. She wasn't even near the pass when it went out. So Young doesn't wait for an explanation she assumes Amara can't give anyway. Her hand cracks across Amara's face before anyone can stop her. The sound sharp enough to make 3 grown men in expensive suits flinch. Amara's head snaps sideways. Her cheek burns. She tastes copper where her teeth caught the inside of her lip. Nobody in that room moves to help her. Not one person. Amara doesn't walk out. She straightens instead, one hand pressed to her stinging cheek, and looks past So Young toward the head of the table, where Eun-woo sits with his jaw tight, his striking blue hair falling over dark, exhausted eyes fixed on the ruined plate in front of him. Something in her chest goes very still. Not fear. Something closer to recognition. She knows what it looks like when a body rejects food it can't trust. She grew up watching her grandmother cook for relatives recovering from chemotherapy. Learned every trick for coaxing appetite back into someone whose stomach had turned against them. She steps past So Young without a word, walks straight into the kitchen, and starts pulling ingredients off shelves nobody authorized her to touch. Gochugaru, doenjang, a jar of dried suya spice her brother smuggled back from a trip to Lagos 2 years ago, the kind of West African blend you can't buy in any Seoul market. Scotch bonnet flakes she keeps hidden in her own bag. She works fast, her hands moving with the same steady rhythm as her knife earlier, building a rich, fiery fusion broth that smells nothing like the $5,000 plate that just got rejected. Something rougher, warmer, built from 2 different corners of the world that were never supposed to meet on a mafia boss's dinner table. The kitchen staff stare. Nobody stops her. She carries the steaming bowl out herself and sets it down directly in front of Eun-woo without asking permission, without meeting anyone's eyes. If you were standing in that room, watching a woman risk her life to serve a mafia king who didn't even know her name, would you have dared to step forward? Tell me in the comments right now, and subscribe so you don't miss the moment Amara turns this entire syndicate upside down. Eun-woo stares down at the bowl. Steam curls up, carrying the scent of chili, fermented soybean, and a smoky West African heat underneath it all. He glances up at Amara, really looks at her for the first time, and something in his hardened face shifts. He picks up the spoon. He takes one reluctant bite. The room holds its breath. Eun-woo freezes. His eyes widen. Then, without a word, he takes a second bite. Then a third. Within 2 minutes, the most dangerous man in the city cleans the entire bowl, scraping the bottom clean, while his wife and the investors stare in complete, paralyzed shock. Eun-woo sets the spoon down, turns his piercing gaze to his head security guard, and points a single finger at Amara. Fire the entire kitchen team, Eun-woo commands, his voice cold as ice. From tonight on, she's the only person allowed to feed me. The room stays frozen for 3 full seconds after Eun-woo's command lands. So Young's mouth opens like she's about to argue, then closes again when her husband's eyes cut toward her. Not angry exactly, just done. The way a man looks when he's finished reading a book he already knows the ending to. The investors from Busan exchange glances over their untouched wine glasses. Whatever they came here to witness tonight, it wasn't this. Amara doesn't know the words Eun-woo just spoke. She reads the room instead. The head of security straightening, the kitchen staff's stunned faces, So Young's hand curling into a fist at her side, and understands enough. Something just shifted. She just watched a man rebuild himself 1 spoonful at a time, and now every eye in the room is on her like she's the one holding a weapon. By morning, the entire compound knows. Eun-woo's assistant delivers the news to Amara in the small apartment she shares with nobody, sliding a folder across the table because he's not sure if she can read lips fast enough to catch it all. 30,000 a month. Full medical coverage for Taemin, backdated to cover everything already owed. A private kitchen built to her specifications, 1 floor beneath Eun-woo's own quarters. She reads the numbers twice, then a third time, her hands pressed flat against the paper, like she needs to feel it's real. She doesn't smile. She's learned not to trust good things arriving without a catch attached. What develops instead is a routine, one built entirely around a language that doesn't need sound. Amara watches Eun-woo the way she watches a pot about to boil over, the tightness in his shoulders when the pain flares. the way his hand drifts to his ribs when nobody's supposed to notice, the specific hollowness under his eyes that tells her he hasn't slept. She writes notes on a small pad she keeps tucked in her apron pocket, holds them up when words matter, but mostly she just cooks what his body is telling her it needs before he says a single thing about it. Ginger and perilla leaf for the nausea. A broth, thick with oxbone and turmeric for the nights his hands won't stop shaking. She adds a thread of smoky West African Scotch bonnet heat to almost everything, small enough that it doesn't overwhelm a stomach that's spent months rejecting anything bold, but present enough to remind his body that food can still mean life instead of danger. Within 3 weeks, he's sleeping through the night, for the first time since the last poisoning attempt. Within 5, he's put back nearly all the weight he lost. He starts finding reasons to be in the kitchen when she cooks. Doesn't say much, can't, not in any language she'd hear anyway. Just sits at the counter with a folder of shipping manifests he stopped actually reading, watching her hands move. When one of the younger guards makes a derogatory comment about the mute girl, thinking she runs the house now, Eun-woo doesn't raise his voice. He just tells the man's supervisor that his services are no longer needed, effective immediately. The compound gets the message fast. Whatever anyone thinks about Amara, they keep it to themselves. So Young watches all of this from the edges of her own house like a woman locked out of a party she used to host. Her husband hasn't touched her cooking, her opinions, or her company in weeks. Every meeting that used to route through her now routes through a kitchen assistant who barely speaks and doesn't need to. Somewhere in that smiling facade, something in So Young curdles into a desperate plan. Late one evening, while Amara's finishing prep, So Young slips into the private kitchen with a small vial tucked inside her sleeve. She empties a portion of toxic chemical compound into a jar of dried chili flakes. Amara's personal spices, the ones nobody else in the compound would think to touch. She doesn't know Eun-woo installed covert night vision cameras in every kitchen 2 weeks earlier. The next afternoon, Amara finishes plating a fiery beef short rib dish. Unaware of the tampered jar, she sprinkles a pinch of the poisoned chili flakes over the top and carries the tray out. Eun-woo reaches for his spoon. Across the room, So Young holds her breath, a cruel smile forming at the edge of her lips. Eun-woo lifts the spoon to his mouth, and at that exact second, his head of security bursts through the doors, stepping directly between Eun-woo and the plate. Before So Young can even react, the head of security slams a tablet onto the table, playing 11 seconds of crystal clear footage showing So Young pouring the vial into Amara's spice jar. The entire hall goes deathly silent. Eun-woo looks down at the tablet, his jaw clenching so hard a vein throbs along his temple, his striking blue hair falling forward as he slowly turns his gaze to his wife. "You're removed from all executive sessions," Eun-woo tells her, his voice deadly quiet, like he's reading off a shipping manifest instead of ending a marriage. No access to compound security, no presence at investor meetings. You'll remain in the East Wing until I decide what happens next. So Young's face drains completely white. She doesn't scream. She knows screaming won't undo video evidence. But her eyes, when they land on Amara standing quietly by the kitchen doorway, burn with pure malice. Somebody in this compound is clearly playing a longer game than anyone at that table realizes. And if you think you know who's really pulling the strings behind So Young's downfall, drop your theory in the comments right now. And if you're loving watching this underdog flip the entire power structure of a mafia house upside down, smash that like button before we go any further, because what happens next is where this story stops being simple. Amara reads the shape of the room. So Young stripped bare of her power, Eun-woo's protection absolute. She meets Eun-woo's eyes across the hall. He holds her gaze a beat longer than necessary, his dark eyes softening just for her before turning back to his men. Neither of them notices So Young slip out through the side door, pulling out her phone and dialing the head of a rival syndicate. "He took everything from me," So Young whispers into the receiver. "Bring your men. Take the deaf girl. I'll open the back gates tonight." The East Wing goes dark just after midnight. Not from a power failure, from a woman standing at a window with her phone pressed to her ear, watching the back gate she used to control like it still belongs to her. So Young hasn't been allowed near compound security in 11 days, but she still remembers every code, every blind spot, every guard rotation Eun-woo hasn't gotten around to changing yet. Betrayal, it turns out, doesn't need permission. It just needs a door somebody forgot to lock from the inside. The rival syndicate calls itself the Baek Line, run out of the western ports by a man named Baek Ji-hoon, who has wanted Eun-woo's shipping routes for 3 years and never found an opening wide enough to take them. So Young hands him one wrapped in silk and spite. 8 men slip through the back gate a little after 1 in the morning, moving quietly across ground. So Young mapped out for them, timed to the exact 10-minute gap between guard patrols. Amara is alone in the private kitchen when they come for her. She's finishing the last of tomorrow's prep. Jars sealed, counters wiped, hands moving on instinct, while her mind drifts somewhere calmer. She doesn't hear the door, doesn't hear the footsteps. The first sign anything is wrong is the sudden shift in air pressure as the kitchen door swings open too fast. A gloved hand closes over her mouth before she can turn around. She fights. 11 years without sound has made her attuned to every physical shift. She throws her elbow back hard enough to catch one man in the ribs, sending a stack of copper pans crashing off the counter as she twists free for half a second. But there are 3 of them, and 1 of her. The sedative-soaked cloth pressed over her face wins the argument her body is losing in 20 seconds. The last thing she registers before the room goes soft and dark is a hand shoving her phone into her apron pocket instead of taking it. Someone's mistake. Someone's rush in the dark. It's the mistake that saves her life. Eun-woo finds the overturned pans 40 minutes later when Amara doesn't answer his usual late-night knock. He doesn't shout. He doesn't panic. He just goes dead still, the way water goes right before the surface breaks, and turns to his head of security with a voice colder than winter. "Pull every camera. Now." The footage shows 3 men dragging Amara's unconscious body out through the back gate. It shows, in the corner of one frame, a woman's silhouette standing at an East Wing window, watching them go. Eun-woo's hand curls into a fist so tight his knuckles turn white. An hour later, his phone rings. Baek Ji-hoon's voice comes through smooth as oil, laying out terms. Sign over the northern port routes by dawn, or the girl who can't even hear you agreeing to save her life won't be coming home. Eun-woo doesn't answer. He's staring at a location ping coming from inside Amara's apron pocket. Whoever grabbed her didn't check for a phone sewn into the lining. Whoever grabbed her made a mistake that's about to cost them everything. Inside a shipping container at the Westport, Amara comes back to consciousness slowly, concrete cold under her, wrists bound in front of her. Her phone is a small weight against her hip, screen cracked, the call somehow still connected from the chaos earlier. She can't speak into it, but she starts tapping the phone case against the concrete floor in a steady rhythm. 3 short, 2 long, over and over. The same knock her grandmother taught her back home. Eun-woo has the phone pressed to his ear, tracking the faint mechanical hum of engine noise underneath her tapping. When the rhythm suddenly speeds up, he understands. Time just ran out. "Container yard," Eun-woo commands, already pulling a heavy weapon from his desk. "Westport, move!" 3 SUVs tear through the port gates at full speed, tires screaming against wet asphalt. Eun-woo steps out into the dim yard, rain soaking his striking blue hair, eyes visual silver with fury, If you've ever wondered what it looks like when a man realizes there is exactly one person in the world worth burning an empire down for, this is it. Share this video right now with anyone who lives for high-stakes drama and smash that like button for Eun-woo's rescue, because what he does next is why you started watching. Eun-woo doesn't negotiate. He kicks the container door off its hinges with a deafening crash, disarming the first guard before the man can even raise his weapon. He slams Baek Ji-hoon into the steel wall, dropping him to his knees, and steps through the rising dust straight to Amara. She sees him before she processes anything else. The blue hair catching the weak light, the look on his face that has nothing composed left in it. He drops to his knees in front of her, slicing the zip ties with a blade from his belt, his hands shaking in a way she's never seen from him before. Amara reaches up and presses her palm flat against his chest, feeling the frantic, hammering rhythm of his heart underneath his jacket. He pulls her tight against his chest, holding her like she's the only thing keeping him grounded. On the floor beside them, Baek Ji-hoon gasps for air, hands raised. "It wasn't my idea. It was your wife. So Young gave us the gate codes. She told us to take the deaf girl." Eun-woo doesn't even look back at him. He gently lifts Amara into his arms, carrying her out into the open air, safe at last. The drive back to the compound happens in a silence neither of them minds. Amara sits wrapped in Eun-woo's heavy coat, her wrists still marked from the zip ties, watching the port lights blur past the window while his hand stays wrapped around hers the entire way, his thumb moving slowly over her knuckles, like he's checking she's still real. Neither of them says anything. Neither of them needs to. By the time they reach the compound gates, So Young is already gone. Her private quarters in the East Wing sit empty, drawers pulled out, half her wardrobe left hanging, like she grabbed what mattered and abandoned the rest. Eun-woo's head of security finds her passport missing and a burner phone left behind with one number saved to it. Baek Ji-hoon's, now useless, since Baek Ji-hoon is currently zip-tied in the back of an SUV, giving up every detail of the plan. 2 days later, So Young is picked up at the provincial border using a stolen passport. But when Eun-woo's family attorney steps into the police station, he delivers a revelation that turns So Young's entire world into dust. So Young's marriage to Eun-woo was never real. It was a temporary political contract drawn up 6 years ago between their families to smooth over a territorial dispute. A contract with an expiration clause that ended 18 months ago. So Young had been living in that luxury compound not as a wife, but as an uninvited guest who overstayed her welcome. Stripped of her status, facing kidnapping and corporate treason charges, the elegant woman who once ran investor dinners with white silk and rehearsed smiles is locked in a holding cell wearing a paper jumpsuit, realizing she destroyed herself for a marriage that never even existed. Eun-woo hands her over to the authorities himself. He doesn't say anything cruel. The footage, the expired contract, and Baek Ji-hoon's confession speak louder than anything he could shout. 3 weeks later, the compound looks completely different, realigned into the shape it was always supposed to hold. Eun-woo leads Amara into a private, locked archive in the study, a room that has sat untouched for years. He slides a leather-bound journal across the table to her, written in English, French, and Korean. He reveals the truth he has never shared with a single soul in his life. His mother, the original founder who built this syndicate's trade empire from nothing, was also a deaf black chef from West Africa. She arrived decades ago on a merchant ship, settled in Busan, and built an empire using notes, gestures, and culinary mastery that spoke louder than any voice. She created a secret archive of medicinal fusion recipes, blending West African roots with Korean tradition, the exact flavor instincts Amara had been drawing from intuitively for weeks. Amara reads the pages, her hands pressed flat against the journal, a lump forming in her throat. The woman who built this empire lived a version of her exact life 50 years earlier in this exact house. Before we reveal how this incredible story ends, did you see any of these twists coming? Or did the ending catch you completely off guard? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now and make sure that notification bell is on so you never miss our next high-stakes drama. Eun-woo watches Amara read, his dark eyes filled with something softer than she's ever seen. He doesn't offer her a salary or a contract this time. He slides a golden folder across the counter, deed transfers and ownership papers, handing her a controlling stake in the syndicate's entire global restaurant enterprise, built on his mother's legacy and Amara's genius. He writes one final note on his pad, holding it up for her in the quiet kitchen. Not my chef, my equal. Build this empire with me. Amara reads the words once. She sets the folder down on the counter between them, and for the first time since the night she carried a bowl of fusion broth across a room full of strangers who doubted her, she lets herself smile, slow, radiant, and entirely her own. She takes his hand, stepping into her true place not as a servant, but as the unstoppable matriarch of a new global empire.